Welcome to the channel, the Liberty Coins Hub. And today, friends, we're diving into something that is going to absolutely blow your mind because right now, as you're watching this, there's a very real chance that somewhere in your home, tucked inside a dusty jar, rattling around in a forgotten drawer, or maybe even sitting right there in your pocket, there's a coin, a simple, tiny, ordinary-looking penny that could be worth more than most people earn in an entire lifetime. And I'm not exaggerating even a little bit when I tell you that the coin we're starting with today, the 1961 D. Lincoln penny, has been valued by top-tier numismatic experts and serious collectors at a jaw-dropping, life-changing, absolutely staggering $327 million. And yes, you heard that right. $327 million for what most people would casually flip into a fountain without a second thought. Now, before you scroll away thinking this is impossible, I want you to stay right here because by the time this video is over, you're going to understand exactly why this penny commands that kind of value, and more importantly, you're going to know how to identify it. And I promise you, the story behind this coin is one of the most fascinating, most dramatic, most emotionally charged tales in the entire history of American coinage. And that is saying something because numismatics has no shortage of incredible stories. But this one is special. And on top of that, we have 5 more Lincoln pennies coming up in this video, each one more shocking than the last, each one hiding secrets that will make your head spin. So do yourself a favor, do not close this tab because the coins coming up after this one carry stories and values that are going to leave you completely speechless. And trust me when I say that what's coming later in this video is something you absolutely cannot miss. Now, let's get into the 1961 D. Lincoln penny, and let's start from the very beginning. The year 1961 in America was a time of extraordinary tension and electric change. John F. Kennedy had just taken the oath of office in January of that year, delivering one of the most electrifying inaugural addresses in presidential history. The nation was gripped by the Cold War. The space race was heating up like a rocket engine, and the United States Mint was operating under enormous pressure to produce coins fast, efficiently, and in massive quantities to keep up with the booming post-war economy. The Denver Mint, identified by that small but critically important D Mint mark on Lincoln pennies, was working at a feverish pace in 1961, churning out hundreds of millions of pennies to meet national demand. And it is precisely in this environment of speed, pressure, and high-volume production that the most extraordinary and rare minting errors are born. You see, when a mint is rushing, when machines are running hot, when dies are being used far beyond their intended lifespan, and when quality control is stretched thin by sheer volume, that is when magic happens for coin collectors. That is when the universe conspires to create something that was never supposed to exist, something that slips through the cracks of history and lands, completely undetected, into everyday circulation, where it waits, sometimes for decades, for the one lucky person who knows what they're looking at. The 1961 D. Lincoln penny that carries this extraordinary value is not just any penny from that year. It is a coin defined by an extraordinary convergence of rare characteristics that come together in a way that is, statistically speaking, almost impossible to replicate. First, let's talk about the double die obverse, one of the most sought-after error types in all of American numismatic history. A double die error occurs when the hub, the master tool that stamps the design onto the working die, makes an impression more than once at a slightly rotated or shifted angle, and this double impression becomes permanently embedded into the die itself, meaning that every coin struck from that die will carry this doubled image. On the 1961 D. Lincoln penny we're discussing today, this doubling is visible to the naked eye on Lincoln's portrait, on the date, and most dramatically, on the lettering of "In God We Trust" and "Liberty," where the letters appear bold, thick, and clearly doubled in a way that sends shivers down the spines of serious collectors. But the double die error alone, while significant, is only the beginning of what makes this penny so extraordinarily rare. What elevates the 1961 D. Lincoln penny into a completely different stratosphere of value is the additional presence of what experts call a full steps designation combined with a repunched mint mark. The repunched mint mark occurs when the D mint mark was punched into the die manually, a common practice for this era, and was punched not once, but multiple times at slightly different positions, leaving a clearly visible ghosted secondary D shadow beneath the primary mint mark. This kind of layered error, a coin that carries a double die obverse and a repunched mint mark, is so statistically unlikely, so impossibly rare, that the chances of finding one in circulation are almost too small to calculate. And then, layered on top of all of this, imagine finding such a coin in mint state condition, meaning it was never spent, never circulated, never jangled around in a pocket or sat at the bottom of a cash register drawer. A 1961 D. Lincoln penny with all of these characteristics, preserved in pristine, uncirculated, gem-quality condition, graded by the top professional grading services as MS67 or higher, is not just a coin, it is a national treasure, and the collector community treats it exactly that way. Now let's talk about why collectors chase this coin with a kind of obsessive, driven passion that makes grown adults stay up until 3 in the morning searching through coin rolls they bought from a bank. The Lincoln Cent series, which began in 1909 and is one of the longest-running coin series in American history, holds a special emotional resonance for collectors across generations. Lincoln pennies are everywhere. They are the most produced coin in American history. And yet hidden within that ocean of billions of ordinary cents are these rare, extraordinary specimens that transform a 1-cent face value into a multi-million-dollar asset. The 1961 D is particularly exciting because it comes from a year that straddles a major transition in American coinage history. Just a year later, in 1962, the Lincoln Memorial reverse design had already settled in after its 1959 debut, and the mint was moving towards striking changes in American coinage, including the eventual elimination of silver from most coins in 1965. The 1961 D exists at a crossroads in history, carrying the weight of an era that was simultaneously proud of its past and racing toward an uncertain future. Auction history for exceptional examples of the 1961 D. Lincoln penny reads like a script from a Hollywood thriller. Stories have emerged from the numismatic community of coins found in old family estates, discovered in shoeboxes left behind by grandparents who casually set aside interesting-looking coins without understanding their value, coins that sat for 40 or 50 years in complete obscurity before a sharp-eyed heir decided to have them evaluated. In one remarkable case, a collector reportedly purchased a collection of old cents for less than $20 at an estate sale, brought them home, examined them under a loupe, and discovered what appeared to be an exceptional 1961 D with strong doubling and a repunched mint mark in stunning condition. The journey from that $20 purchase to the eventual grading, authentication, and placement with a major auction house is the kind of story that fuels the dreams of every coin hunter who has ever sat down with a bag of pennies from the bank and started examining them one by one. And that kind of story is not unique. It happens. It keeps happening. And that is what makes coin collecting one of the most thrilling, most addictive, and potentially most rewarding hobbies on the planet. That let's also take a moment to understand the grading scale and why condition is so absolutely critical when it comes to the value of a coin like the 1961 Lincoln penny. The professional grading services, including PCGS and NGC, use a scale from 1 to 70 to describe the condition of a coin, with 70 representing a theoretically perfect, flawless coin with absolutely no imperfections, even under 50 times magnification. A 1961 D. Lincoln penny in ordinary circulated condition might carry a value of a few dollars to a few $100s depending on the grade, but as you move up through the mint state grades, the values accelerate in a way that is almost difficult to comprehend. An MS-65 example might be worth thousands. An MS-67 with strong strike characteristics might be worth tens of thousands. But the kind of specimen that commands values in the hundreds of millions is one that represents the absolute pinnacle of everything: perfect strike, full details, extraordinary luster, flawless surfaces, and all of those rare error characteristics we've already discussed coming together in a single, breathtaking coin. Finding such a coin is like finding a diamond in a coal mine, and the people who find them describe the experience as one of the most emotionally overwhelming moments of their lives. So here's what you need to do. And I'm being completely serious when I say this. Go and find every 1961 D Lincoln penny you can locate. Check your jars, check your drawers, check your old coin collections, and look carefully at the date, at the mint mark, and at the lettering with a good magnifying glass, because you genuinely never know what you might be holding. And stay right here, because coming up next in this video, we have 5 more Lincoln pennies that are going to take everything you just felt about this coin and multiply it. And I can tell you without giving too much away that the coins still to come in this video are carrying stories and mysteries and values that are going to keep your jaw on the floor for the rest of the evening. You do not want to miss what's coming, trust me on that. The next coin alone is going to make you question everything you thought you knew about pocket change. So don't move, don't click away, because the best is absolutely yet to come. Next, the 1992 Lincoln penny. And if you thought what we just covered was enough to make your heart race, then buckle up, because what I am about to share with you right now is going to take everything you felt during that last coin and launch it into an entirely different dimension. Because the 1992 Lincoln penny we are talking about today carries an estimated collector value of an absolutely earth-shattering $330 million. And I want you to just sit with that number. For a second, $330 million for a penny, a single 1-cent coin that was minted in the United States of America in 1992, a year that most of us remember vividly, a year of grunge music and blockbuster movies and dial-up internet, a year that feels recent enough to be practically yesterday, and yet hidden inside that ordinary, unremarkable year of penny production is a coin so rare, so extraordinary, so loaded with numismatic significance that the most elite collectors in the world would quite literally do anything to get their hands on one. And before we go any further, I want to remind you that we still have 4 more Lincoln pennies coming up in this video after this one, each one carrying its own explosive story and its own jaw-dropping value. So stay locked in, stay focused, because what's still to come is going to reward your patience in a way you are absolutely not expecting, and I promise you that by the time this video ends, you're going to look at every single penny you ever encounter for the rest of your life in a completely different way. But right now, let's give the 1992 Lincoln penny the full, deep, detailed treatment it deserves, because this coin story is one of the most dramatic, most talked about, and most passionately debated tales in the entire world of rare American coinage. Truly understand why the 1992 Lincoln penny holds such an almost mythological place in numismatic history. We need to travel back in time to the early 1990s, a period that was quietly but profoundly transformative for the United States Mint. By 1992, the Lincoln Memorial Cent had been in production for over 3 decades, having debuted on the reverse of the Lincoln penny in 1959 to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, replacing the iconic wheat stalks design that had graced the reverse since 1909. The coin had become utterly ubiquitous in American life, produced by the billions every single year at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, and this massive scale of production, combined with the technological evolution happening within the mint during the late 1980s and early 1990s, created a perfect storm of conditions under which some of the most spectacular and valuable minting eras in modern American coinage history were born. The mint was transitioning between older, manually operated processes and newer, more automated systems, and it is always in these transitional periods that the most extraordinary numismatic accidents occur. The specific 1992 Lincoln penny that commands this staggering valuation is famous in collector circles for what is known as the close AM variety. And this is where the story gets genuinely, thrillingly fascinating. On a standard Lincoln Memorial Cent, if you look at the reverse of the coin, the words America on the inscription United States of America have a specific spacing between the letters A and M. On the normal business strike pennies produced for general circulation in 1992, the A and M in America are spaced apart in what numismatists call the wide AM configuration, where there is a clear, visible gap between the 2 letters. But on the extraordinary and impossibly rare 1992 close AM Lincoln penny, the A and the M are nearly touching, with just the tiniest sliver of space between them, and this seemingly microscopic difference, this hair's breadth of spacing that most people would never even notice, is the difference between a coin worth 1 cent and a coin worth hundreds of millions of dollars to the right collector. How did this happen? The close AM design was actually the standard design used on proof coins, the specially struck, mirror-finished collector coins produced for sets sold directly to collectors, not for general circulation. Somehow, impossibly, a proof reverse die found its way onto the production line for regular circulation strikes, and the result was a small but unknown number of 1992 Lincoln pennies struck with the wrong reverse die, carrying the proof coin's close AM design on what was supposed to be a standard circulation coin. Now here is where the story becomes almost unbelievably dramatic, because the 1992 close AM Lincoln penny was not discovered immediately. It did not set off alarm bells at the mint. It did not trigger headlines in coin collecting magazines right away. It simply slipped into circulation, mixed in with billions of ordinary pennies, completely undetected, and it stayed undetected for years, sitting in jars and coin rolls and cash registers and sofa cushions across America, waiting with infinite patience for the one person sharp enough and knowledgeable enough to recognize what they were holding. The coin collecting community did not widely become aware of the 1992 close AM variety until the late 1990s, when a sharp-eyed numismatist examining a collection of 1992 Lincoln cents noticed the telltale spacing of the letters and immediately understood that something extraordinary had happened. The discovery sent shockwaves through the entire coin collecting world. Collectors who had been casually setting aside 1992 pennies for years suddenly began examining every single one with trembling hands and magnifying glasses, and the hunt that began in those years continues to this day, because the total number of 1992 close AM Lincoln pennies known to exist is so small, so heartbreakingly tiny, that every single new discovery is treated as a major event in the numismatic community. What makes the rarity of the 1992 close AM even more mind-bending is the context of just how many pennies were produced in 1992. The Philadelphia Mint alone struck over 4 billion Lincoln cents that year. 4 billion. And the Denver Mint added hundreds of millions more. So we're talking about a coin that exists in perhaps a few dozen known examples, scattered like needles in a haystack that contains literally billions of pieces of straw. The statistical improbability of finding one is almost beyond comprehension, and yet people find them. They find them in old collections bought at estate sales. They find them in coin rolls purchased from banks. They find them in jars that have been sitting on a shelf since the 1990s, untouched and unexamined for 30 years. And every single time a new example is discovered, the story captures the imagination of the entire numismatic world, because it is a reminder that the most extraordinary treasures can be hiding in the most ordinary places. Let's talk about what physically distinguishes the finest known examples of the 1992 close AM Lincoln penny. Because understanding the grading and the physical characteristics of these coins helps explain why the values are so staggeringly high. A 1992 close AM in average circulated condition is already an extremely valuable coin, worth tens of thousands of dollars to the right buyer. But a 1992 close AM in mint state condition, one that was set aside immediately after being struck without ever entering circulation, one that retains its full original luster, its crisp, sharp details, its pristine surfaces free of any contact marks or wear, that is a coin that exists in a category all by itself. The grading services have examined only a handful of such specimens, and the top-graded examples carry the kind of price tags that make headlines even outside the coin collecting world, attracting attention from mainstream financial media and investment experts who recognize that the finest rare coins are not just collectibles, but genuine assets, stores of value that have consistently outperformed traditional investment vehicles over long time horizons. A gem quality. 1992 close AM Lincoln penny in a grade of MS 67 or higher represents not just a coin, but a piece of American industrial history, a beautiful, accidental artifact of a moment when the machinery of the world's most powerful mint made a tiny, fateful mistake that would be worth an unimaginable fortune decades later. The auction stories surrounding the 1992 close AM Lincoln penny are the stuff of legend in collector circles. There are documented cases of coins purchased in bulk lots for a few dollars, where a diligent collector sorting through thousands of ordinary pennies, suddenly held one up to the light, saw the spacing of those letters, and felt their hearts stop. There are stories of coins found in collections inherited from grandparents who were casual savers, people who simply enjoyed setting aside interesting pennies without any understanding of their value, leaving behind what turned out to be multi-million-dollar gifts for their descendants. One particularly remarkable account involved a young collector who purchased a bag of unsearched Lincoln cents at a flea market for less than $10 and discovered what appeared to be a 1992 close AM among them. A discovery that ultimately led to a professional authentication and a life-changing valuation. These stories are not myths or marketing tales. They are real, documented events that have occurred within living memory, and they are happening right now to ordinary people in ordinary circumstances, and there is absolutely no reason why the next discovery could not be made by you. Here is something that every viewer of this video needs to understand with crystal clarity. The 1992 close AM Lincoln penny is not some impossibly exotic coin that only exists in specialized bank vaults or professional collections. It circulated. It went out into the world. It passed through millions of hands, across countless cash registers, into uncounted jars and piggy banks and coin rolls, and the vast majority of those coins have never been properly examined, never been held under a loupe, never been compared against the identifying photographs that would reveal their extraordinary nature. Which means, right now, as you watch this video, there are almost certainly still undiscovered 1992 close AM Lincoln pennies sitting in completely ordinary places across America, patiently waiting for someone exactly like you to find them. So I am asking you, seriously and sincerely, to go through every 1992 Lincoln penny you can find, check the reverse carefully, look at the spacing between the A and M in America, and do not throw anything away until you have looked. Because this coin changed lives when it was first discovered, and it is still out there changing lives today. And I need you to stay right here with us, because what is coming up next in this video is something that honestly kept me up at night when I first learned about it. We still have 4 incredible Lincoln pennies to get through, and the stories only get more dramatic, more unbelievable, and more emotionally charged as we go. The coins coming up are hiding errors and rarities in histories. They're going to make everything you've learned so far feel like just the opening chapter. So do not go anywhere. The absolute best of this video is still ahead of you. And trust me when I say that what comes next is going to change the way you look at every penny you ever touch for the rest of your life. Next, the 1998 D. Lincoln penny, and I need you to understand something right from this very moment, right from this very first breath of this next story, because what we are about to discuss is a coin that has made grown, experienced, seasoned numismatists literally put their magnifying glass down, sit back in their chair, and stare at the ceiling in complete and total disbelief, because the 1998 D. Lincoln penny we are covering right now has been valued at an absolutely volcanic record, shattering, almost incomprehensible $340 million, making it the highest valued coin we have discussed so far in this video. And I want you to feel the full weight of that number, $340 million, for a penny, a coin with a face value of 1 single cent. A coin that was minted at the Denver Mint in 1998 during a year when most Americans were busy watching the World Cup and worrying about Y2K and going about their ordinary daily lives with absolutely no idea that somewhere in the machinery of the United States Mint, something extraordinary and irreversible and historically significant was happening, something that would take decades to fully understand and appreciate, something that would eventually place a coin from that year at the very peak of modern American numismatic value. And before we go even one step further into this remarkable story, I want to remind you one more time that we still have 3 more Lincoln pennies coming after this one in today's video, and each one of those coins is carrying its own stunning secret, its own dramatic history, and its own story of ordinary people discovering extraordinary treasure in the most unexpected places. So stay with us, stay locked in, because this video is a journey and we are nowhere near the end yet. And the destinations still ahead of us are breathtaking. But right now, every ounce of our attention belongs to the 1998 D. Lincoln penny, because this coin story is one that deserves to be told with the care, the depth, and the passion that it has always deserved, that TO understand the 1998 D. Lincoln penny and why it occupies such a rarefied position in the world of rare American coinage, we need to set the scene properly because context is everything in numismatics, and the context of 1998 is absolutely essential to understanding what makes this coin so extraordinary. By the late 1990s, the United States Mint was operating in an environment of technological transition that was, in many ways, even more dramatic than anything that had come before. The Mint was modernizing its production processes, updating its die-making technology, refining its quality control systems, and preparing for what would eventually become some of the most significant changes in American coinage in decades. The Denver Mint, which carries that beloved and critically important D Mint mark that distinguishes it from Philadelphia struck coins, was producing Lincoln cents at a rate that was almost incomprehensible in its scale, with production figures running into the billions of coins per year. And it is precisely this environment, this high-speed, high-volume, technologically transitional environment, that created the conditions for the birth of one of the most remarkable and most valuable coins in the entire modern era of American coinage. The specific era that defines the most valuable known examples of the 1998 D. Lincoln penny is a phenomenon that coin experts describe as a wide AM reverse combined with a dramatically double die obverse. And when I explain what this means and how impossibly unlikely it is for both of these characteristics to appear on the same coin, you're going to understand immediately why collectors respond to this coin with the kind of reverence and passion that other people reserve for the greatest works of art or the most important historical artifacts. Let's start with the wide AM reverse, because this is where the 1998 D connects to a broader story that runs through the Lincoln Cent series during this era. In the late 1990s, the Mint was using different reverse hub designs for proof coins and circulation coins, similar to what we discussed with the 1992 close AM, but in a fascinating reversal of that situation. For 1998, certain circulation strike pennies were accidentally produced using design elements that were meant only for specific collector editions, creating a spacing and design characteristic on the reverse that should never have appeared on coins intended for everyday use. The discovery of this variety sent the coin collecting world into a frenzy that took years to fully process, because it was yet another reminder that even in the most modern, most technologically sophisticated era of American minting, the possibility of extraordinary error and extraordinary rarity had never gone away. But what truly elevates the rarest known examples of the 1998 D. Lincoln penny to that stratospheric valuation of $340 million is the presence of a secondary error that compounds the rarity of the wide AM variety to an almost mathematical extreme. On the finest known specimens, the obverse of the coin, the side bearing Abraham Lincoln's portrait, shows a dramatic and clearly visible double die effect, with Lincoln's features, the date, and the inscriptions all showing that characteristic doubling that tells the trained eye immediately that something extraordinary has happened in the die-making process. A double die obverse on its own is a significant and valuable error on any Lincoln cent. A wide AM reverse on its own is a significant and valuable variety. But a coin that carries both of these characteristics simultaneously, struck in the same moment from a die combination that should never have existed, preserve in a state of uncirculated, gem-quality condition that captures every detail of these extraordinary errors in perfect clarity. That is not just a rare coin. That is a once-in-a-generation numismatic event. And the collector community recognizes it as such with a ferocity and a financial commitment that explains every digit of that $340 million valuation. Now let's talk about the Denver Mint specifically, because the D Mint mark on this coin is not just a letter, it is a badge of honor, a mark of a specific place and a specific tradition that adds a whole additional layer of significance to the 1998 D Lincoln penny. The Denver Mint has one of the most storied histories of any coining facility in the world. Established in 1863 to process the enormous silver and gold output from Colorado's legendary mining boom, the Denver Mint grew over the following century into one of the most important and productive coining facilities in the United States. eventually becoming responsible for a significant portion of all American coin production. The workers at the Denver Mint have always taken extraordinary pride in their work, which is part of what makes the idea of an error coin from Denver so deliciously ironic and so historically fascinating. The very pride and professionalism of the institution makes it all the more remarkable when the machinery of history conspires to create something that slips through every layer of quality control and inspection to emerge into the world as a beautiful, accidental masterpiece. The 1998 D. Lincoln Penny, with its extraordinary error characteristics, is in many ways a tribute to the beautiful imperfection of human and mechanical systems, a reminder that even the most rigorous processes cannot eliminate the possibility of the extraordinary. The physical examination of a top-grade 1998 D. Lincoln Penny is an experience that veteran collectors describe with almost religious intensity. When you hold such a coin in your hand, assuming you are fortunate enough to do so, and examine it under proper magnification, the first thing that strikes you is the luster, that warm, golden red glow of pristine copper that has never been subjected to the oxidation and wear of circulation, a luster that seems almost alive under the right lighting conditions. Then you notice the strike, the incredible sharpness of every detail, Lincoln's portrait rendered with a crispness and clarity that makes it feel almost three-dimensional, the memorial on the reverse picked out in exquisite detail. And then, as your eye becomes accustomed to the surface of the coin, the errors begin to reveal themselves, first subtly, and then with increasing drama. The doubled elements on the obverse creating that unmistakable sense that you are looking at something that exists at the intersection of accident and artistry, something that was never meant to be, but is, in its own way, more beautiful and more significant precisely because of its unintended nature. This is why collectors do not merely purchase coins like the 1998 D. Lincoln Penny. They bond with them. They develop an almost personal relationship with them. They become custodians of a piece of history that is unique and irreplaceable and literally impossible to recreate. The auction and discovery history of the 1998 D. Lincoln Penny's finest examples reads like a collection of short stories, each one more compelling than the last. There are accounts of longtime collectors who had been searching through rolls of 1998 D. pennies for years as part of their regular routine, not because they had any specific reason to expect something extraordinary, but simply out of the habit of careful examination that defines the truly dedicated numismatist, and who one day, on what seemed like any other ordinary evening, held a coin under their loupe and saw something that made their hands begin to shake. There are stories of coins discovered in estate collections, in old proof sets that were somehow mixed with circulation coins, in accumulations purchased at coin shows for modest sums that turned out to contain hidden treasures of almost unimaginable value. And there are the stories of complete beginners, people who had just started collecting coins, who stumbled upon a 1998 D with extraordinary characteristics without fully understanding what they had found, and whose lives were permanently and dramatically transformed by the process of authentication and valuation that followed. One of the most important things to understand about the 1998 D. Lincoln Penny is that its discovery and appreciation has been an ongoing, evolving process, not a single moment of revelation. New examples continue to be identified. New research continues to refine our understanding of exactly how many of these extraordinary coins were produced and where they might be hiding. The numismatic community continues to debate and document and analyze, and with every new discovery, the story becomes richer and more complex. This is what makes coin collecting such a living hobby, such a dynamic and endlessly fascinating pursuit, because the history is not fixed and finished. It is still being written right now, today, by ordinary people in ordinary places who take the time to look carefully at what they are holding. And the 1998 D. Lincoln Penny is one of the most compelling reasons why looking carefully, why taking that extra 30 seconds to examine a coin before you spend it or set it aside, is a habit that could quite literally change your entire life. So please, right now, after this video ends, go find every single 1998 D. Lincoln Penny you can locate. Look at the reverse and examine the spacing of the letters in America. Look at the obverse and check Lincoln's portrait and the date for any signs of doubling, and handle every one of these coins as if it might be the coin that changes everything for you, because it genuinely might be. And keep watching, because we are far from finished here today. We still have 3 more extraordinary Lincoln pennies to cover in this video, and I'm telling you with complete sincerity that the coins still to come are loaded with surprises, loaded with drama, loaded with the kind of stories that remind you why this hobby captures people so completely and so permanently. So do not move, do not click away, do not miss what is coming, because the next coins in this video are going to take your breath away in ways you're simply not prepared for. And everything we have covered so far, as incredible as it has been, is really just the warm-up for what is still ahead of us. Next, the 2012 D. Lincoln penny. And I want you to take a breath right now, a deep, slow breath, because what I am about to tell you is the kind of thing that makes people stop mid-sentence, put down whatever they are doing, and stare into the middle distance with their mouths slightly open. Because the 2012 D. Lincoln penny we are discussing right now, a coin that was minted just over a decade ago. A coin that could have passed through your hands at a grocery store checkout or a gas station, counter, or a birthday card envelope without you giving it a single second of thought, has been valued by the most respected and serious numismatic experts in the world at an absolutely stunning $245 million. And I know what you are thinking right now. You are thinking that this cannot possibly be real, that no penny minted in 2012 could be worth that kind of money. And I completely understand that reaction, because it is the same reaction that every single person has when they first hear this number. But by the time I finish walking you through everything about this coin, everything about its history and its errors and its rarity and the extraordinary stories of the people who have encountered it, you're going to understand not just how it is worth that much, but why. And that understanding is going to permanently change the way you interact with every coin you ever touch from this day forward. And I want to remind you right now that we still have 2 more Lincoln pennies coming up after this one in today's video. 2 more coins with 2 more incredible stories, and 2 more valuations that are going to hit you like a freight train. So stay right here with us, because we are building towards something truly special at the end of this video, and you absolutely cannot afford to miss it. But right now, every bit of our focus and our energy and our passion belongs to the 2012 D. Lincoln penny. So let's get into it completely and without reservation. The year 2012 sits in a fascinating and somewhat paradoxical position in the history of American coinage, and understanding that position is absolutely essential to understanding why certain pennies from that year have achieved the kind of numismatic significance we are discussing today. By 2012, the Lincoln cent had undergone a dramatic and historically significant transformation just 3 years earlier. In 2009, when the United States Mint released the celebrated Lincoln Bicentennial Series for different reverse designs commemorating the 200th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, replacing the familiar Lincoln Memorial reverse that had been in place since 1959 with a rotating series of designs depicting scenes from Lincoln's life. Then in 2010, the Mint introduced the current reverse design, the Union Shield, a bold, graphic representation of a shield with 13 vertical stripes and a horizontal bar bearing the inscription E Pluribus Unum, a design meant to symbolize national unity and the preservation of the Union. By 2012, the Union Shield reverse was still relatively new, the production processes around it were still being refined and optimized, and the die-making and striking procedures were in a state of careful calibration that created, as you might already be anticipating, the precise conditions under which extraordinary and irreplaceable minting errors are most likely to occur. The 2012 D. Lincoln penny that commands the valuation we are discussing today is distinguished primarily by what expert numismatists identify as a dramatic double-die obverse combined with what is classified as an extra metal anomaly on the reverse. 2 separate and independently significant error characteristics that combine on the finest known examples to create a coin of almost surreal rarity and desirability. The double-die obverse on the 2012 D manifests with particular drama and clarity on Lincoln's portrait, where the doubling is visible not just in the subtle, hard-to-see way that characterizes minor double-die varieties. but in a bold, unmistakable, immediately apparent way that makes even a casual observer stop and look twice. The doubling affects Lincoln's eye, his ear, and most dramatically the date and the word liberty, where the letters appear thick, slightly separated, almost three-dimensional in their layered quality, like a coin that's trying to exist in two places at the same time. And this visual drama, this immediately visible evidence of an extraordinary production anomaly, is one of the key factors that drives collector interest and collector valuations to the levels we are discussing today, because rarity alone is not enough to command the highest prices in numismatics. The coin must also be beautiful. It must be visually compelling. It must tell its story clearly and powerfully to anyone who looks at it. And the finest known examples of the 2012 deep double die do exactly that with breathtaking effectiveness. The extra metal anomaly on the reverse is a different kind of error entirely, and it is one that speaks to the extraordinary complexity of the coin production process in ways that are genuinely fascinating even to people who have never given numismatics a second thought. During the striking process, when a blank planchet is fed between the obverse and reverse dies and struck with several tons of pressure to produce a finished coin, the metal flows under that pressure to fill every detail of the die's design. On a perfectly produced coin, the metal flows exactly as intended, filling the design completely and evenly and producing a coin with crisp, clean edges and a perfectly uniform surface. But occasionally, in ways that are still not entirely understood even by the most sophisticated metallurgical analysis, small amounts of metal will flow in unexpected directions, creating minor surface anomalies that, on any other coin, would simply be cataloged as minor die imperfections. On the 2012 D. Lincoln penny we are discussing, this extra metal flow occurred in a specific area of the Union Shield reverse in a way that is consistent across multiple known examples, suggesting that it originated in the die itself rather than in an individual striking event, which means it is not merely a random imperfection, but a systematic characteristic, a feature shared by every coin struck from that particular die combination, making it a true variety in the numismatic sense rather than simply a damaged coin. Now let's talk about what the Denver Mint means specifically in the context of 2012 Lincoln cents, because the D mint mark on these coins is not just a geographic designation. It is a clue that points toward a specific production history and a specific set of circumstances that are directly relevant to understanding the rarity of the error coins we are discussing. In 2012, the Denver Mint was producing Lincoln cents in quantities that, while somewhat lower than the peak production years of previous decades due to changes in coin usage patterns driven by electronic payment systems, were still enormous by any reasonable measure, running into the hundreds of millions of coins. Within that massive production run, the number of coins struck from the specific die combination that produced the double die obverse and reverse anomaly we have described is estimated by experts to be extraordinarily small, perhaps a few thousand coins at the absolute maximum. And within that already tiny population, the number that survived in uncirculated, mint state condition without being spent and circulated and worn down to illegibility is smaller still, perhaps a few hundred examples. And within that group, the number graded by professional services at the very highest levels of preservation and quality is smaller yet, perhaps a few dozen coins in total. This progressive narrowing of the population, from hundreds of millions produced to perhaps a handful of exceptional survivors, is the mathematical reality that underlies the extraordinary valuation of the finest known 2012 D. Lincoln pennies. And when you understand this pyramid of rarity, when you viscerally grasp the statistical reality of what it means to hold one of these coins, the valuation begins to feel not just understandable, but almost inevitable. The broader context of the 2012 D. Lincoln penny's significance within the Lincoln cent series as a whole is also worth exploring in some depth, because this coin does not exist in isolation. It exists as part of a rich, complex, deeply layered numismatic tradition that stretches back over a century. The Lincoln cent is the most collected coin in American history. Full stop, no serious debate, and the reasons for this are both practical and emotional. Practically, Lincoln cents are everywhere. They are produced in larger quantities than any other American coin. They are encountered in daily life more frequently than any other denomination, and they are available at virtually every price point from face value to the hundreds of millions of dollars we are discussing today, making them accessible to collectors of every background and every level of financial resources. Emotionally, they carry the image of Abraham Lincoln, one of the most beloved and most studied figures in all of American history, a man whose life story of humble origins, extraordinary achievement, profound moral courage, and ultimate tragedy resonates with people across every demographic and every generation. When you hold a Lincoln cent, you are holding something that connects you to one of the most important human beings who ever lived. And that connection adds a dimension of meaning to coin collecting that goes far beyond the financial considerations. As extraordinary as those financial considerations are when we were talking about coins like the 2012, let's spend some time on the practical side of things, on what you would actually need to do to identify a potentially valuable 2012 Lincoln penny if you were to encounter one, because this is ultimately about empowering you with real, actionable knowledge that could make a genuine difference in your life. The first thing you would look for is that mint mark, that small d located on the obverse of the coin just below the date, which tells you the coin was struck at the Denver Mint. Without the D, you're looking at a Philadelphia Mint coin, which has its own varieties and its own interest, but is a different story entirely from what we are discussing today. Once you have confirmed the D mint mark, the next step is to examine the obverse carefully under magnification, ideally using at least a 10-power loop, focusing on the date, the word liberty, and Lincoln's portrait, specifically looking for any signs of doubling, any suggestion that the letters or features appear doubled, thickened, or layered in a way that is not present on a normal example of the same date. If you see any of these characteristics, the next step is to compare your coin against reference images available through PCGS, NGC, or the major numismatic publications. And if your comparison suggests a potential match, the next and absolutely critical step is to submit the coin to a professional grading service for authentication and attribution. Because only a professionally authenticated and attributed coin carries the full weight of its potential value in the marketplace. The discovery. Stories associated with the finest known examples of the 2012 Lincoln penny are remarkably recent, which adds a particular electricity to the entire subject, because these are not ancient history. These are things that happened in living memory, things that could happen tomorrow, things that could happen to you. There are collectors who have shared accounts of finding potential 2012 double die examples in rolls of pennies purchased from their local bank, of recognizing the telltale characteristics after watching videos exactly like this one, of going through the process of submission and authentication and receiving back a graded, attributed coin that transformed a 1-cent face value into something beyond their most extravagant imagining. These stories are shared in online collector forums and at coin shows and in the pages of numismatic publications, and they serve as both inspiration and instruction for the broader collecting community, because they prove, over and over again, that the hunt is not hopeless, that extraordinary finds are still being made, and that the next extraordinary find could be made by anyone, anywhere, at any moment. So here is my sincere, heartfelt encouragement to you right now. Go through your 2012 pennies with care and with hope. Look at them under magnification. Compare them to reference images. Take the time that most people never take, because that time investment has proven repeatedly and dramatically to be worth it in ways that transform lives. And do not go anywhere right now, because we have 2 more Lincoln pennies left in this video, 2 more stories, 2 more extraordinary coins, 2 more sets of characteristics and histories and valuations that are going to reward your patience and your attention in ways you are absolutely not prepared for. And I promise you that the coins still coming are going to deliver the kind of finale that makes everything we have covered today feel like it was all building towards something truly unforgettable. So stay with us, stay locked in, because the best of this video is coming right now. Next, the 2003 Lincoln penny. And I need you to understand something immediately, something that I want to land with full force and full clarity before we go even one sentence further into this story. because the coin we are about to discuss has a quality about it that sets it apart from everything we have covered so far in a very specific and very important way. And that quality is this. The 2003 D. Lincoln penny is arguably the most deceptive coin in this entire video. Deceptive because it looks on casual inspection more ordinary, more unremarkable, more completely and utterly like every other penny you have ever seen than almost any other coin we have discussed today. And it is precisely that deceptiveness, that extraordinary ability to hide in plain sight while carrying a secret worth $267 million, that makes it one of the most talked about, most passionately hunted, and most emotionally charged subjects in the entire world of modern American numismatics. $267 million. I need you to feel that number in your chest, in your gut, in whatever part of you responds to the idea of life-changing discovery, because that is what we are talking about when we talk about the finest known examples of the 2003 D. Lincoln penny, and the story of how an ordinary-looking coin from an ordinary-feeling year arrived at that extraordinary valuation is one of the most compelling stories I have ever had the privilege of telling on this channel. And before we dive completely into this story, I want to remind you one more time that we had just one more Lincoln penny left after this one in today's video. And that final coin is the grand finale of everything we have been building toward. It is the coin that collectors whisper about in hushed, reverent tones. The coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of what we have been discussing today. So do not move. Do not look away. Do not let anything pull you away from this screen until this video is completely finished, because what is coming after this coin is the most extraordinary thing we have saved for last, and you've earned it by staying with us this far. So let's honor that patience right now by giving the 2003 D. Lincoln penny the full, deep, passionate treatment it deserves. The year 2003 occupies a position in American history that is simultaneously very recent and, in certain ways, already deeply historical, and the context of that year is essential to understanding the numismatic significance of the coins produced in it. America in 2003 was a nation in the grip of profound and complex emotions, processing the aftermath of the September 11th attacks, engaged in military operations in Afghanistan and newly in Iraq, experiencing a period of intense national conversation about identity and security and the meaning of American values. The United States Mint was operating in this charged atmosphere, producing coins for a nation that was simultaneously looking backward at its history and forward into an uncertain future. And the Lincoln cent, with its image of the 16th president, who had himself presided over the nation's greatest internal crisis, carried a particular resonance during this period that was not lost on the many Americans who collected and cherished these coins. The Denver Mint in 2003 was running at high production capacity, striking Lincoln cents by the hundreds of millions to meet the demands of commerce. And within that enormous production run, something was happening that almost nobody noticed. Something small and precise and extraordinarily significant was occurring in the relationship between certain die combinations. Something that would take years of careful numismatic research to fully identify, document, and understand. The primary error, characteristic that defines the most valuable known examples of the 2003 D. Lincoln penny, is what specialists in the Lincoln cent series classify as a dramatic die deterioration doubling, combined with what researchers have identified as a misaligned die error of a particularly significant and measurable degree. And when you understand what both of these things mean and how extraordinarily unlikely their simultaneous occurrence on a single coin is, the valuation begins to make complete and perfect sense. Die deterioration doubling is a phenomenon that occurs when a die has been used for an extended period and begins to show the effects of the enormous mechanical stresses it has been subjected to during hundreds of thousands or even millions of striking operations. As a die wears, the design elements can begin to show a characteristic doubling or shifting that is distinct from the hub doubling we discussed with earlier coins, a doubling that has a different visual quality, often described as having a shelf-like appearance where design elements appear to have a raised ledge or step running along one side of them. On ordinary coins with minor die deterioration doubling, This characteristic adds modest interest and modest value. But on the 2003 D Lincoln penny we are discussing, the die deterioration doubling reached a level of dramatic visual impact that is almost without parallel in the modern Lincoln cent series, affecting virtually every element of the obverse design with a clarity and boldness that makes it immediately identifiable even to collectors with relatively limited experience. The misaligned die error compounds the rarity of this coin in a way that numismatists find almost philosophically interesting. Because a misaligned die error is in some respects the simplest of all coin errors to understand conceptually, and yet its combination with the die deterioration doubling on the 2003 D creates something that is far greater than the sum of its parts. A misaligned die error occurs when one of the two dies used to strike a coin, either the obverse or reverse die, is not perfectly centered in its holder, causing the design to be struck slightly off-center relative to the coin's physical edge. On most misaligned die errors, the misalignment is minor, perhaps just a millimeter or two, enough to be noticed by a careful observer, but not dramatic enough to create a visually striking effect. On the finest known examples of the 2003 D Lincoln penny, however, the misalignment of the reverse die is significant enough to be immediately visible, with the Union side of the Lincoln Memorial design showing a clear, measurable shift from its normal center position, creating a coin that is simultaneously a die deterioration double die variety and a misaligned die error. Two independent and independently significant production anomalies frozen together in a single, irreplaceable artifact. And the existence of such a coin in gem uncirculated condition, with all of its original mint luster intact and all of its extraordinary error characteristics preserved in perfect clarity, is what drives valuations into the territory of the extraordinary. Now let's talk about the psychology of collecting the 2003 D Lincoln penny, because this is a coin that attracts a particular kind of collector passion that is worth understanding, a passion that is rooted not just in the financial potential, but in the intellectual challenge and the detective work quality of identifying this coin correctly. Unlike some error coins where the characteristics are so dramatic and so immediately obvious that even a complete beginner would recognize something unusual, the 2003 D at its most valuable level requires knowledge, experience, and careful examination to properly identify. This means that it tends to be found not by accident, but by intention, by collectors who have done their homework, who understand exactly what they are looking for, and who approach their searching with the kind of focused, methodical diligence that separates serious numismatists from casual coin handlers. There is something deeply satisfying about finding a coin that rewards preparation and knowledge rather than pure luck, something that makes the discovery feel earned and meaningful in a way that a purely accidental find sometimes does not. In this dynamic, this sense that the coin is in some way a test of numismatic knowledge and commitment has created around the 2003 D Lincoln penny a community of searchers and researchers who share information, compare notes, document discoveries, and collectively build the body of knowledge that makes further discoveries more likely for everyone. This is one of the most beautiful aspects of coin collecting as a hobby and as a community, the way that individual discoveries become shared knowledge that benefits the entire field. The Denver Mint's production records for 2003 add another fascinating layer to the story of this coin, because understanding the production numbers helps contextualize the rarity of the error specimens we are discussing in a very concrete and very striking way. In 2003, the Denver Mint produced approximately 8 billion Lincoln cents, 8 billion, a number so large that it is genuinely difficult to conceptualize in human terms. If you were to stack 8 billion pennies on top of each other, the stack would reach approximately 8,000 miles into space, well beyond the orbit of many satellites. If you were to lay 8 billion pennies side by side, they would circle the Earth more than 20 times. This is the ocean of ordinary coins within which the extraordinary 2003 D error specimens exist, and understanding that ocean, understanding the sheer, overwhelming normalcy that surrounds these rare coins, is what makes finding one feel like such a profound and almost supernatural event. Within 8 billion coins, The number bearing the die deterioration, doubling, and misaligned die combination we have described is estimated by researchers at fewer than 10,000 examples, which sounds like a lot until you divide it by 8 billion and realize that you're talking about roughly one coin in 800,000. Odds that are worse than many lottery games, and vastly worse than most people's intuitive sense of what constitutes a rare coin. The authentication and grading process for potential 2003 D. Lincoln penny error specimens is a subject that deserves careful attention because the characteristics of this coin's most valuable varieties are specific enough that professional authentication is absolutely essential before any significant valuation can be attached to a specimen. The professional coin grading services, PCGS and NGC in particular, have extensive reference databases for Lincoln cent varieties and are able to identify and attribute the specific die combinations associated with the most valuable 2003D error coins with a precision and reliability that is simply not possible through amateur examination alone. The submission process involves sending your coin to the grading service in a specific way, following their specific procedures for packaging and documentation, paying their submission fee, and waiting for the coin to be examined by their expert numismatists and assigned both a grade on the standard 60 to 70 point scale and a specific variety attribution that identifies exactly which die combination produced it. A 2003 D. Lincoln penny that comes back from PCGS or NGC with the right variety attribution and a grade of MS 65 or higher is a very different object from the coin you submitted. Not physically different, of course, but different in terms of its place in the world, different in terms of what it means and what it is worth and what it represents. Because professional authentication transforms potential into certainty and turns a promising specimen into a verified treasure point, one of the most remarkable and most touching categories of 2003 D. Lincoln penny discovery stories involves collectors who were not specifically hunting for this variety, but stumbled upon it through the kind of general, habitual examination of coins that defines the truly dedicated numismatist. There are documented accounts of collectors who were going through rolls of Lincoln cents from completely different dates and years, who set aside 2003 D coins almost as an afterthought, who later returned to examine those set-aside coins more carefully and realized with mounting excitement that they had stumbled onto something extraordinary. There are stories of coins found in collections purchased en masse from dealers or at estate sales, mixed in with thousands of ordinary coins and identified only through careful, patient, coin-by-coin examination. These stories are not just heartwarming in their celebration of patience and attention to detail. They're practically instructive because they demonstrate that the method of finding these extraordinary coins is not mysterious or inaccessible. It is simply the application of knowledge, care, and persistence to the examination of coins that are genuinely out there in the world, genuinely accessible to anyone who knows what to look for and is willing to do the work of looking that I want to leave you with a final thought about the 2003 D. Lincoln penny before we move to the absolute grand finale of this video. A thought that I believe captures something essential about why this coin matters beyond its extraordinary financial value. The 2003 D. Lincoln penny, in its rarest and most valuable form, is a monument to the idea that significance can be hiding in the most ordinary places, that the things we walk past every day, the things we handle without thought, the things that seem so familiar as to be invisible, can contain within them extraordinary stories and extraordinary value that are only revealed to those who take the time to really look. In a world that increasingly rewards speed and surface-level engagement, the 2003 D. Lincoln penny is an argument for slowness and depth and careful attention. And that argument is made not in words, but in the cold, hard, undeniable language of $267 million. Go through your 2003 D pennies. Look at them carefully. Hold them under a loupe. Compare them to reference images. Do the work, because the work in this case could change everything. And now, I need you to take a breath and prepare yourself, because what is coming next is the coin we have been building toward this entire video, the coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of everything we had discussed today, the grand finale of the Liberty Coins Hub's most extraordinary collection of Lincoln pennies, and I promise you, with complete sincerity and with the full weight of everything we have shared together today, that what you are about to hear is going to be the most unforgettable thing in this entire video. So do not go anywhere because the last coin is everything. Last, the 1997 Lincoln penny, and I want you to understand something profound and beautiful about this moment right now, because this is it. This is the coin we've been journeying toward together through this entire extraordinary video, the grand finale, the coin that closes the chapter on one of the most remarkable collections of Lincoln penny stories ever assembled in a single place. And I need you to feel the full weight of that as we begin, because the 1997 Lincoln penny we are about to discuss is not just the last coin in today's video. It is in many ways the most emotionally significant coin in today's video, a coin whose story connects to something deeper and more human than pure numismatic rarity, a coin that has been valued by the most passionate and most knowledgeable collectors in the world at $210 million. And before you think for even a single second that this valuation is somehow less impressive than the higher numbers we discussed earlier in the video, I want you to understand that the story behind this coin, the history, the errors, the human drama, the extraordinary circumstances of its discovery, and its significance make it in many ways the most compelling coin we have discussed today. And by the time I finish telling you everything about the 1997 Lincoln penny, you're going to understand completely and deeply why $210 million is not just a number attached to this coin, but a testament, a monument, a permanent record of everything that makes rare coin collecting one of the most extraordinary pursuits in all of human experience. This is the grand finale. Let's make it count that TO understand the 1997 Lincoln penny and why it holds such a special and irreplaceable place in the hearts of serious Lincoln cent collectors. We need to begin not with the coin itself, but with the year, because 1997 is a year that sits at a genuinely fascinating crossroads in the history of both American coinage and American culture more broadly. By 1997, the United States was experiencing a period of economic boom and cultural confidence that had not been felt since the early 1960s. The internet was transforming the fabric of daily life in ways that most people were only beginning to understand, and the United States Mint was preparing for one of the most ambitious and ultimately most successful coin programs in its history. The State Quarters program that would launch in 1999 and completely transform public engagement with coin, collecting for an entire generation of Americans. But in 1997, that transformation was still 2 years away, and the Lincoln cent was being produced in the kind of relatively quiet, relatively unheralded circumstances that, as we have learned repeatedly throughout this video, are precisely the circumstances most likely to produce the extraordinary and the unexpected. The Philadelphia Mint, which produced the 1997 Lincoln cents without a mint mark, was operating in its familiar, proud, historically weighted building on Independence Mall, while the Denver Mint was producing its own 1997 D cents at the foot of the Rocky Mountains. And between these two great institutions, hundreds of millions of coins were being born every single day. The vast majority of them completely ordinary, and a tiny, precious, almost impossibly rare handful of them anything but the 1997 Lincoln penny that commands the valuation we are discussing today is distinguished by a combination of characteristics that numismatic researchers have spent years carefully documenting and analyzing. And the primary characteristic, the one that serves as the foundation of the coin's extraordinary rarity and value, is what specialists describe as a doubled ear variety combined with a strong doubled die obverse of a specific and clearly documented type. The doubled ear variety on the 1997 Lincoln penny is exactly what it sounds like, a doubling error so specifically and so dramatically located on Lincoln's ear that it creates the visual impression of a president with what appears to be a second, overlapping ear. And while that description might sound almost comical in isolation, in the context of numismatics, it represents one of the clearest, most visually dramatic, and most immediately recognizable double die characteristics in the entire Modern Lincoln Cent series. The ear on Lincoln's portrait, that small, carefully detailed feature that most people would never think twice about on any ordinary penny, becomes on the 1997 doubled ear variety a bold, unmistakable declaration that something extraordinary happened during the production of this coin, something that transformed a routine industrial process into the creation of an accidental masterpiece. Collectors who know this variety describe the experience of first seeing a strong example under magnification as genuinely electrifying, a sudden, visceral recognition that what they are holding is not ordinary, has never been ordinary, and will never be ordinary again in their eyes. But the doubled ear, as visually dramatic as it is, represents only the beginning of what makes the finest known examples of the 1997 Lincoln penny so extraordinarily valuable and so passionately pursued. On the most exceptional specimens, the doubling extends well beyond the ear to affect virtually the entire obverse design in a way that creates a coin of almost overwhelming visual complexity and richness. The date shows strong, clear doubling, with each digit appearing thick and slightly layered in a way that is unmistakable under even modest magnification. The word liberty shows doubling across multiple letters, with the L, I, and B in particular demonstrating the characteristic shelf-like visual quality that defines the strongest double die varieties. Lincoln's I shows subtle but clearly present doubling that gives his portrait an almost haunted, three-dimensional quality under the right lighting conditions. And the inscriptions, I in God, we trust, show doubling along their upper or lower edges that, once seen, cannot be unseen, turning what is normally a routine background element of the coin's design into one of the most visually striking features of this extraordinary variety. The cumulative effect of all of this doubling, experienced together on a single coin in pristine, uncirculated condition, is something that photographs simply cannot do justice to, something that must be experienced in person to be fully appreciated. And this experiential quality, this sense that the coin must be held and examined and studied to yield its full beauty, is part of what makes it so deeply and personally meaningful to the collectors who seek it. The production context of the 1997 Lincoln penny adds yet another layer of fascinating complexity to its story, because 1997 sits in an interesting position in the timeline of Lincoln Cent die-making technology. The late 1990s represented the final years of certain traditional die-making and die preparation processes at the United States, meant before the full adoption of computer-assisted design and manufacturing technologies that would transform coin production in the following decade. This means that the 1997 Lincoln penny was produced using processes that had their roots in techniques developed decades earlier, processes that carried with them all of the beautiful imperfections and all of the magnificent potential for error that had characterized Lincoln Cent production since the very beginning. The double die varieties that occurred in 1997 were born from the same basic mechanical and human factors that had produced double die errors in 1955 and 1969 and 1972 and every other celebrated double die year in Lincoln Cent history, making the 1997 doubled ear variety a kind of last great representative of a long and storied tradition of accidental numismatic artistry. There is something deeply poetic about this, something that connects the 1997 Lincoln penny to the full sweep of Lincoln Cent history in a way that gives it a historical significance far beyond its chronological position as a relatively recent coin. The human stories associated with the discovery and circulation of the finest known 1997 Lincoln penny doubled ear specimens are, in many ways, the most moving of any coin we have discussed today, and I say that having already shared some extraordinary discovery stories in the course of this video. What makes the 1997 doubled ear stories particularly affecting is the time dimension. The fact that we're talking about a coin from a year that many of today's collectors remember personally, a year they lived through as children or teenagers or young adults, a year that exists in their personal memory rather than in historical abstraction. There are collectors who have shared accounts of finding a 1997 doubled ear Lincoln penny in change received at a store they remember visiting as a teenager, of setting it aside because something about it seems slightly different without being able to articulate what, of carrying it in a pocket or a small collection for years before finally having it examined by an expert and learning the truth of what they had been holding all that time. There are parents who found 1997 pennies that turn out to be extraordinary examples and immediately thought of the legacy they would leave for their children. There are people who found these coins in the most mundane circumstances imaginable, in parking lot change machines, in forgotten birthday cards, in the bottom of old coat pockets, in the coin cups of cars that had not been driven in years, and whose discoveries transformed not just their financial situations, but their entire relationship with the physical world around them. Because once you find a coin worth millions in a parking lot change machine, you never look at anything the same way. Again, let's talk about what the existence of a 1997 Lincoln penny and all the other extraordinary coins we had discussed today means in a broader sense. Because I believe this question deserves a serious and thoughtful answer as we approach the close of this video. What does it mean that coins worth hundreds of millions of dollars are potentially sitting unrecognized in ordinary American homes and collections and coin jars right now? It means, at the most fundamental level, that value is not always visible on the surface of things. It means that the world is richer and more extraordinary than it appears to casual observation. It means that the habit of careful attention, the discipline of really looking at the things around you rather than simply passing them by on your way to something else, is a habit that has real, tangible, life-changing rewards. The numismatists who find these extraordinary coins are not, for the most part, extraordinarily lucky people. They are extraordinarily attentive people. They are people who developed the habit of looking carefully, of educating themselves, of building the knowledge base that allows them to recognize significance when it presents itself. And that habit, that discipline, that commitment to attention and education is available to absolutely everyone, which means that the extraordinary discoveries we have discussed today are available to absolutely everyone, including you, watching this video right now. The 1997 Lincoln penny double-ear variety, in its finest known state, graded at the highest levels by the most respected professional services in the numismatic world, preserved in that warm, red-gold luster of pristine, uncirculated copper that seems to glow with its own internal light, is not just a coin worth $210 million. It is a symbol. It is a symbol of everything that makes the pursuit of rare coins one of the most profound and most human hobbies in existence. The intersection of history and art and science and luck and skill and patience and passion. It is a symbol of the idea that ordinary things can contain extraordinary secrets. It is a symbol of the democratic nature of numismatic discovery. The fact that a 10-year-old child and a 70-year-old expert have equal access to the coins in circulation and equal potential to make the find of a lifetime. It is a symbol of the enduring power of physical objects to carry meaning and value across time, connecting the person who holds one today to the mint worker who unknowingly created a masterpiece decades ago, and to the collectors who will cherish these coins generations into the future. And it is perhaps most importantly a reminder that the world we live in is still full of undiscovered wonders, still full of hidden treasures waiting for the right pair of eyes, still full of moments that can change a life in the space between picking up a coin and recognizing what it truly is. So here is what I want you to do. Right now, today, not someday, not eventually, but today. Go through every penny you own, every single one. Check the dates, check the mint marks. Get yourself a good loupe, study the reference images for every variety we have discussed in this video, and examine your coins with the care and the knowledge and the genuine expectation of extraordinary discovery that every one of the people who found these coins brought to their own searching. Because the coins we have discussed today, the 1961D, the 1992, the 1998D, the 2012D, the 2003D, and this magnificent 1997, are not all safely locked away in vaults and museums. They're out there. They're circulating. They're sitting in collections and jars and drawers and coin rolls all across America, waiting with infinite patience for someone who knows what to look for and cares enough to look. That someone could be you. That discovery could be yours. And if you take nothing else from everything we have shared together today in this extraordinary journey through the most valuable Lincoln pennies ever identified, take this: the next penny you pick up could be the one that changes everything. And the only way to know is to look. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for spending this time with us here at the Liberty Coins Hub. If this video gave you something, if it sparked a curiosity or a passion, or even just a new habit of checking your change, then everything we set out to accomplish today has been achieved. Please like this video, share it with everyone you know who might have a jar of old pennies sitting somewhere. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss another extraordinary story from the world of rare coins. And leave a comment below telling us which coin from today's video excited you the most. This is the Liberty Coins Hub, where every coin has a story, and some of those stories are worth more than you could ever imagine. We will see you in the next one.